The Cult of Speed detachment is, as you would expect, all about speed. Bikes, Deffkoptas, buggies, planes, all the stuff that is usually painted red and zips around the board as fast as possible is going to be key for armies using these rules. And the Cult of Speed detachment does definitely reward this style of play. It gives you an incredibly useful detachment ability for those units. All of your Speed Freaks units, they are able to not only shoot after they've advanced, but also when they've fallen back. So now you can get right up into the enemy's face, unleash a load of firepower, and then in a warg, even charge after that. But then if you do get bogged down by an enemy unit, or you just want to move somewhere else on the board and still shoot at the enemy, you can very easily fall back and then still just shoot them in the face. It makes for an army that is incredibly flexible and incredibly slippery, and will allow you to get your shooting exactly where it needs to be, exactly when you need it. So it may surprise you when I tell you that the unit I want to look at today, which I think is going to be a must-take in a Cult of Speed list, is actually not a biker or a Deffkopta or a buggy, or indeed even has the Speed Freaks keyword. No, instead the unit I think is a must-take in the Cult of Speed is a unit of Nobz. Specifically, a unit of Nobz with a character in a truck. Or a battle wagon, but just for this video we're going to go on the cheapness and general utility side of things, so we're going to go for a truck. Now you might be confused, how is this a combo that is going to be a must-take in a Cult of Speed detachment? Well, first of all, let's look at those respective units. First up we have the humble truck. This thing is still an incredibly cheap 65 points according to the latest field manual, and it still gets you that nice toughness 8, 4-up save profile with 10 wounds, and crucially a really nice 10-inch move, so even though it doesn't have the Speed Freaks or Cult of Speed keywords, it is still really speedy. It does also bring you some token shooting with a big shooter for some strength 5 pot shots, and then you can also give it a little bit of a melee punch, or just some extra strength for the tank shock stratagem with the strength 10 wrecking ball. And then on top of that, it also regains a wound in your command phase, and it has a cheeky 6-up invuln, so it's nothing amazingly durable, but it can get some wounds back over the course of the game and keep on trucking, I guess. And for its relatively cheap cost, it is durable enough for what you get. But inside this thing goes your squad of Nobz. Sitting at 110 points for 5, you can take a full squad of 10 and attach a leader to them and still fit them all into the truck with its 12 slots. And that, in terms of the Nobz, gets you 220 points of toughness 5, 2 wound infantry with a 4-up save. Now on the face of it, I suppose that doesn't sound incredibly stellar, but they do get a few nice abilities to go along with it. They get a really nice -1 to be wounded buff from the boss's lads when a war boss is with them, and then their main draw for me is that they can all 10 of them, they can all take a power claw. And that means you could, in a warg turn, be chucking out 40 strength 10 -2 AP 2 damage attacks with them, which is genuinely quite terrifying. It is more than enough to one-shot a gladiator tank, and then with the +1 to hit buff from the war boss, they can even cut through an entire 5-man Terminator squad with Thunderhammer and Storm Shields with damage to spare. So they are particularly killy, and with the war boss, they can even potentially get an extra 8 power claw attacks on the warg because of his special rule to help them kill even more stuff. Now the war boss, as we've mentioned, he is going to be who you are attaching to this squad. He hasn't changed at all. He still looks to be 65 points. He's still got that +1 to hit buff for his unit as mentioned, and the 4 extra attacks he gets in the warg, and he is just generally all-round killy and all-round useful. But then where does this combo of units really come into its own? Because a truck, a war boss, and 10 Nobz, sure, that sounds great, but what makes it good in this detachment compared to any of the others, especially because they don't get the Speed Freaks keyword? Well, it all ties into one particular enhancement, the 35 point faster than use. And this can go on an infantry model only, so your war boss, and it means that when the bearer and his unit disembark from a transport, hello truck, after it's made a normal move, they can disembark and then still declare a charge. So now your squad has that excellent 12-inch move from the truck. They can disembark 3 inches and then they still get their 2d6 charge. So this squad now has an average 22-inch threat range, but a maximum possible of 27 inches. So whilst this isn't going to guarantee you a first turn charge, it is going to make getting that squad into combat on your own terms when you want them to be in combat much, much easier. You can ride them up in the truck to keep them safe and get them into a good position, and then if your opponent has gone first and moved up a bit, or you are in your second turn and when the lines are a bit closer together, you can storm up, disembark, and then drop an enormous number of power claw attacks into a key enemy unit. And if you are in the Warg, you will most likely be able to kill it outright. So it gives you a huge amount of mobility in this detachment, which is focused around mobility, so it does fit in thematically, but it also gives you a huge melee threat. And a lot of the damage in this detachment is very much shooting focused because it's, Deffkoptas and Warbikers. So this gives you a really almost like a torpedo unit to just send up and get into melee and just crump the biggest, scariest enemy unit that they've got. Now you can, as I mentioned, bring some other things instead of it. You could potentially go for mega armored Nobz and a battle wagon, but for me, a squad of 10 Nobz in the truck with a war boss, especially when you have some other fast moving threats like the aforementioned bikers and buggies and Deffkoptas, it can almost sweep under the enemy's radar. They won't really notice it as much as they will, this big battle wagon that they know is filled with mega armored Nobz. So you can kind of get it up into the enemy's face a little bit unhindered if you're lucky, and it is a reasonably cheap 350 points, so it's not too expensive, and you can quite reliably get it to chew through a lot of elite infantry or light and medium vehicles, and the squad can make its points back really quite fast. As I mentioned, they will easily one-shot a gladiator tank or a 5-man Terminator squad, and it does basically turn your squad of Nobz into a unit of Terminators in a Land Raider because of the disembark and charge. They essentially have the assault ramp rule. They can even, in the turn of a war, knock off a good 15 wounds into a knight profile, so if you've been able to soften it up with some shooting from your other units beforehand, they can quite reliably charge in and finish it off without too much trouble, and they will just be this very immediate, dangerous thorn right in your opponent's face early on in the game. All the while, your enemy is already trying to deal with the load of Deffkoptas and bikes and other fast-moving units that are moving up, advancing, shooting, and then falling back and still shooting and just basically harassing the rest of his line. So it is this big part of this overall pressure list that gives you this really strong melee component to what is, as I said, a relatively shooty detachment. The enhancement is quite pricey at 35 points, and yes, I would admit, without the Speed Freaks keyword, this unit doesn't unfortunately gain really any other benefit in the detachment. You don't get any benefit from the detachment rule, and none of the stratagems will go on this unit. So after that initial blistering charge out of your transport, you are a little bit scuppered. I mean, you're not. You've still got a really scary squad, but you can't give them kind of any additional support. It is, as I said, just this really big, scary torpedo unit. And so despite those downsides, I really do think that this is going to be a key, core, almost mandatory unit for this detachment, just to have one of, so you can send them in and just crump a big, scary enemy unit or squad or model in melee. Whether you go for the cheaper route of the trucks and the Nobz, or the more expensive but arguably more durable battle wagon, 6 mega Nobz and warboss in mega armor is kind of, I guess, up to you. If you want that slightly more durable but more expensive unit, go for the mega Nobz. That will set you back 420 points. But the Nobz, not only being cheaper at 350, they are also a bit killier. They get you more power claw attacks overall on the charge. The mega Nobz only end up having in the region of 24 or so. So there is a bit of weighing up in terms of what you want, the killie output or the durability, but I just prefer the Nobz overall. I like having this unit that can just charge in and do a huge amount of damage rather than a unit that can sit around and survive a bit longer. There isn't really a huge amount more to say about this setup. The enhancement is just super good and really does add this key pressure unit to your detachment. I mean, there are of course a load of other great units to bring in the Cult of Speed. You know, I'm sure we will cover a lot of them in a future top 5 video when we have the confirmed points. But as it stands, I do think that this enhancement is a must take, and it can allow you to just run this huge threatening unit of Nobz with power claws and their war boss and chuck them right into an enemy unit. And unless it's a knight or a land raider, they are going to have a very good chance of just flat out deleting it in one round of combat. And that will of course just make the rest of the game so much easier for your speedier bikes and Deffkoptas to control the movement of the game and the flow of the battle, and really force your opponent to halt their advance to try and deal with this terrifying blob of boys waving these power claws around right in the middle of their battle lines. So that is going to be the awesome combo for the Cult of Speed. As always, I'd love to know your thoughts on it and whether it will be making an appearance in your Cult of Speed armies. Let me know what you think down in the comments below, and as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do like and subscribe for more Warhammer content from me, but until next time, I'll catch you later, guys.